I'll call to order the Mayor's Council meeting of December 11th. And would like to begin by acknowledging with respect that we are meeting on the traditional territory of a number of Indigenous nations who we are fortunate to work with in planning and managing the region's transportation system. First item is the adoption of the agenda with a slight variation. We're going to hear from public delegates first, and then we'll move on to the rest of it. So with that amendment, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Okay, next is approval of the public meeting minutes. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. All right, we have 4 public delegates who are joining us today, and the first who I'll invite is a very famous gentleman. Joe, please come forward. Pleased to have you here.
Walk-up music, but I couldn't get it to work in time. Hi, Mayor Brad. World famous mayor's. Oh, gotta make sure this is this on.
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. I'll try to be. I really appreciate the timer and everything. Joe Kunzler here from your Skagit County, Washington fan, and I want to talk to you about free things and free minutes. I understand you've got a sales tax hike that is coming your way from Movement YVR. You may have noticed that I did stop by their headquarters and bought a button today. You know, I just think generally it's not the best of ideas. I think a vehicle levy would be better. I think a land value capture tax, as the chair of this council said on Van Color did. You know, they are, you know, they also it lost the 2015 sales tax plebiscite. I read Jordan Bateman's book earlier this week to prepare for today. I really don't want to see it happen to you guys. I come from a place where we have volatile sales tax, and if not for the historic flooding and a climate emergency, thank you, Bowen Ma, that you know, that the Whitecomb Transportation Authority was going to raise their fares from $1 a ride to $2 a ride because of the sales tax revenues declining. So I really don't recommend it to you, except as a last resort. Like if you're in 2017 and you're down a goal and you gotta pull the goalie of Sarah Ross back there, then you get the backup guy to you know, drive that sales tax forward in an emergency. The second reason why I came down here is as a grateful American. Tensions between our two countries, and I blame a certain Donnie for 90% of it alone, have really gone sour, and I really am sad by that. I remember what Canada did on 9/11, 2001 for us. I remember what Canada has done with TransLink. There is a JADA map on my northern wall, and I just bought another one yesterday for my office's northern wall. It's very important that TransLink be a light and beacon to the world, and you are right now, and you need to realize that in this climate emergency. I am speaking to you on TransLink, you know, operating area, but I come from Skagit County. We are about to have a 100-year flood. We are going to lose a lot of property, and I'd like to leave it at that. 30 seconds left to go. I'm very excited for today's housing and transportation cost burden study, as much as I'm excited for Sarah Ross to get some playing minutes, because this is going to be a really great meeting today, a really great gathering of the team. You know, I really think that housing and transportation cost burden study will show why I need a vehicle levy, and also will also show that a property tax levy would be better. So I have 3 seconds left to go. So as I would say back home in the land of Sound Transit, Skagit Transit, go TransLink. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us and making the time to come on up across the line. We appreciate your time.
Brad West for chair.
We'll see momentarily, my friend. Our next speaker is Nathan.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Mayor's Council. First, I would like to thank you, Mayor Brad West, for your support of moving the handout in-house. We need a new TransLink Act, hopefully in the 2026 spring session of the BC legislature. We had enough with 18 years of bad South Coast of BC Transportation Authority. Maybe send a letter to the BC government stating that if the new act is not enacted, there'll be no mayors on the Mayor's Council. Every mayor will appoint one of their city councilors and see what they'll say. Today is a special day. I was on the SkyTrain 40 years ago. However, many of the promises were never fulfilled. We need many upgrades to the Expo line, including proper schedules to connect with the Canada line. Your agenda item about customer surveys, which I support, we should do surveys for customers, but some cities are doing now surveys for non-transit riders. For example, New Brunswick, the KVGO is doing it. And that's, of course, to find out why they are not using the transit system. So I think this adding a survey for non-transit riders is probably a very good idea to find out what's happening in Metro Vancouver. The main items is the new TransLink Act, and the new Mayor Council should also return the 5 minutes time for delegations, and the Mayor's Council should follow all of Metro Vancouver meeting rules and policies. You should not set up your own policies that are separate or different. Metro Vancouver and the province are the father and mothers of TransLink, and that's what you should be doing. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you very much for your presentation this morning. The next speakers are Arden and Solomon.
Good morning, Mayor's Council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Solomon, and I'm accompanied by Arden, and we're both volunteers with Movement, Metro Vancouver Transit Riders. We're here to talk about the new funding tool that TransLink needs and why the Mayor's Council must be ready to use it. We are well aware that any new funding tool is at the provincial government's discretion, as it is the province that must either create it through new legislation or give direction to ICBC to collect the vehicle levy. Either way, there's immense pressure on the provincial government to act.
But when that hopefully happens, the Mayor's Council will be given a tool it hasn't had before. We know that there's political risk involved in proposing a new revenue tool, whether it's the province's jurisdiction or yours. It can still be scary to be at the helm when the change goes in. Conventional wisdom says that people hate taxes no matter what, but we're here to show you that taxes can be popular, even in the American Deep South, as long as you can gain the public's trust. We recently hosted an event called Transit's Next Top Funding Model, where we brought together 8 teams, a panel of 6 judges, and a room full of 200 people to talk about new taxes. Each team pitched a different way to increase transit funding, from benefiting area taxes to employer contributions to vehicle kilometers traveled. The winners, however, as chosen by a panel of 6 judges that came from many diverse backgrounds, most of them managerial, sales tax was the winner. And it was chosen by the judges for its sheer ability to raise the funds required, and its ease of implementation, as well as a fairly equitable distribution. Our sales taxes are some of the lowest of any province, and a 1% increase would bring us to the national median. Just like the PST, this tax wouldn't apply to essentials and would be higher on luxuries. Tourists would pay for it.
The audience's choice was an annual vehicle levy administered through ICBC, making its implementation also very simple. We could match Seattle's vehicle levy, which is a 1.1% annual charge on the value of a car. The rate of an old clunker would be $30 a year, and for a new Maserati would be $3,000. No matter the funding tool, though, Movement urges the Mayor's Council to understand that people are willing to pay taxes or fees if they get something valuable and life-changing for them. Good transit is one of those things. City after city in the United States votes overwhelmingly yes on municipal state referendums that stake improved public transit on prescribed tax increases, usually a sales tax. This is being kept track of, and the tally is hovering around an 86% success rate on referendums. In New York, congestion pricing, as you know, was being treated like the plague before it was implemented, but less than 1 year later, its fiercest opponents are some of their strongest defenders. Every measurable metric for commerce, travel times, satisfaction from the general public, road safety, noise levels, pollution, etc., are all positive.
The point is, taxes don't need to be scary if there's certainty that something good will come from them. We know that there's a good plan for transit expansion in the region, and we commend the Mayor's Council for creating the Access for Everyone plan. So keep fighting for this transit funding, and when it's eventually launched, Metro's vans 1 million transit riders will thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it. And our final delegate is Chris Ng. Chris here? Okay, not seeing him. That will bring us to our next item, which is election of chair, vice chair, and board designates. And for the purpose of chairing this item, I recommend that we ask our recording secretary and corporate secretary, Carol Lee, to act as chair. Can I have a mover to do that? Move. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Good morning, everyone. So we'll start with the election. Is it right? Oh, thank you. Good morning. We'll start with the election of the board chair, and I will make the first call for nominations, please. Sorry, Mayor McEwen?
I'd like to nominate Brad West.
Thank you. Mayor West, do you accept the nomination?
I do. Thank you.
Any second nominations? Any further nominations? Third and final call for nominations. May I have a motion to close the resolution? Nomination, sorry. Thank you. Seconded? Second. Question? All in favor? Thank you. I declare Mayor West the chair of the Mayor's Council by acclamation. And would you like to say a few words?
I'll hold on to my report.
Okay. Would you like to conduct the further elections?
I'd be happy to have you do it.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I will make a call for nominations for the Mayor's Council Vice Chair, please. Mayor West.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Brody.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you. Mayor Brody, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Thank you. Second call for nominations? Third and final call for nominations? May I have a motion to close nominations? Seconded? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. I declare Mayor Brody Vice Chair of the Mayor's Council by acclamation. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'd like to say a few words for about 5 minutes, but I'll spare you.
Okay. Good. I don't know how to work the timer. No? Okay. The third election is for the 3 board delegates whose positions become vacant on January 1st, and it looks like Mayor West has a nomination.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to nominate mayors Nicole McDonald, Eric Woodward, and Mike Little.
Second.
Any further nominations? Third and final call for nominations? I have a motion to have the nominations closed.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. I declare the Mayor's Council Board delegates as Mayors McDonald, Little, and Woodward. And would either any of you like to say a few words?
Eric?
Buchanan.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. That will bring us to the report of chair. And first, I do want to thank my colleagues for your support, for my continued leadership here At the Mayor's Council, I'm incredibly proud of the heavy lifting that this group has done over the last number of years, particularly in the last year, and we have achieved a significant amount without a heck of a lot of support from other levels of government, largely on the back of the decisions that we have made as mayors. We have cut the structural deficit in more than half. We've added new transit service, and we've been keeping the Access for Everyone plan on track. And we all know that we have much more to do to continue the expansion of the transit system, including the delivery of new BRTs, more bus service, and much more. I think responsibility for the continued progress on this plan is very much in the federal and provincial government's corner at this point. We have done, as I said, so much heavy lifting, but we have done as much as we can do given our limited revenue tools and our limited authorities. So it will now be up to senior levels of government to determine the progress that they believe is required in our region. I'm hopeful that they will be strong partners to deliver what is required, and I know we all look forward to working with them to do so, but it will very much require their partnership and their funding commitments to move us forward. With that, I'll ask if there are any questions. Seeing none, motion to receive. Move second, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, next is a report from TransLink Management, and I'll ask Kevin to come forward. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Do you guys have slides?
Should be coming up. There we go.
Maybe it's reverse. I think it was at the end. Well, while we get that set up, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm going to present a management report this morning that really highlights the work underway that we're doing to implement the 2025 investment plan, including some service increases, keeping the system in a state of good repair, and improving safety for customers. I'll also be providing an update on the progress we've made on the 2025 investment plan implementation. With winter quickly approaching, TransLink is getting ready to deliver service improvements for our customers through our winter service changes. And so on Monday, we'll be announcing that we're adding service on 37 bus routes in Metro Vancouver, hitting the road in early January. As usual, you'll be receiving more information about the improvements coming to each of your communities. This is in addition to the improvements that we've already rolled out on 53 different routes in September. These service increases address overcrowding, they reduce congestion, and they make transit more convenient for customers, all thanks to the 2025 investment plan. With these changes, we will have implemented about 1/3 of the bus service expansion funded through the investment plan, with more to come throughout 2026. Alongside winter comes darker evenings and reduced visibility. And so again, thanks to investment plan funding and following a successful pilot, TransLink is moving forward with the installation of 10 additional solar-powered push-button lighting units at bus stops across Metro Vancouver. And these lights are really designed to enhance safety, improve visibility, and are an innovative way to support a better overall customer experience. That's something we have consistently heard as so important to customers. The next phase of our bus stop lighting program, which began November 17th, uses a stronger, longer-lasting light than we tested earlier in the year, which will improve performance during the darker winter months. So we're encouraging customers at these stops to try the new lighting, share their feedback through a short online survey available via QR code on the bus stop signature, and we'll review these results through early 2027 to guide future installations across the region. Also pretty cool is that these lights were developed by a local Victoria-based company, Urban Solar, through our 2024 open call for innovation. The program directly supports the goals from our Customer Experience Action Plan, particularly around enhancing safety and comfort for our riders in your communities. We're also continuing to progress the Expo Line elevator replacement program, which is now underway at Stadium Chinatown and Waterfront SkyTrain stations. This is in addition to the ongoing work already happening at Nanaimo and 22nd Street stations. And through our capital program, these new elevators will bring important benefits to our customers, including more room for mobility devices, strollers, bikes, and luggage, improved reliability with less downtime for maintenance, and better resilience during warm weather. Each replacement takes roughly 4 months, and once complete, all 21 original Expo Line elevators across 15 stations will have been replaced with modern, more spacious units, significantly improving accessibility and reliability across the network. This system maintenance program runs through 2029, and the current replacements at these 4 stations, those will be completed ahead of the FIFA World Cup in June, and then work will pause during the event to minimize disruption for customers and for visitors. These initiatives are just, I think, some great examples of how decisions that this Mayor's Council has made have really led to real on-the-ground improvements for our customers. As you know, additional revenues in the 2025 investment plan enabled the largest bus service expansion since 2018, which is improving access to new areas and reducing overcrowding. And to ensure efficient goods movement across the region and to support economic development in your communities, we're also increasing much needed funding to repair roads in the Lower Mainland. Of course, the investment plan also advances design work on the Bus Rapid Transit program. In 2026 will be a very exciting year as we'll be conducting additional corridor engagement. The plan also fully funds the R2 Rapid Bus extension to Metrotown, which we'll be working to get into service by the end of 2026. Internally, new initiatives like improved fare enforcement and additional ad revenues, as well as efficiencies and cost-saving measures, have also made great progress. As we move forward, we will continue to be laser-focused on fiscal prudence, really making sure every dollar spent allows TransLink to meet the growing needs of Metro Vancouver. I do want to provide a quick update on the federal budget that was released last month and what it may mean for TransLink, and you'll hear more about this later in the Executive Director's report. As you all know, the federal government has been a strong partner to us for many years. TransLink received commitments of $2.1 billion from the Canadian Public Transit Fund, and we were expecting some of this funding to start rolling out in 2026. However, the new federal budget has introduced uncertainty about the future of this funding and the status of dedicated federal transit funding. I want to emphasize that TransLink has a pipeline of shovel-ready projects that could deliver on shared community objectives, economic productivity, affordability, and housing access, but we need permanent, predictable funding to do so. This added uncertainty could force us to delay projects, drive up costs, and drag out much-needed regional service expansion for customers. And in speaking with my transit industry colleagues across Canada, I know we all collectively share these concerns. We look forward to receiving more clarity from the federal government about the future of the Canada Public Transit Fund and the status of the funding commitments that have been made to TransLink. With that, thank you so much for your time today. I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kevin. See if there are any questions or comments for him. Yeah, Mayor Buchanan.
Sorry, and my apologies for being late. Just through you to Mr. Quinn. If you're waiting for clarity, I'm assuming we haven't heard anything back since the budget's been dropped.
That's correct. We have not heard anything providing us any clarity from the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, motion to receive the report. It's been moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Great. Next is a report from the Joint Planning Committee. I invite Sarah Ross to present.
You got this.
Great, thank you. Actually,
It's
Caitlin Cooper.
the dream team.
That's right. Well, even more of a dream team is Caitlin Cooper is going to take this item.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Caitlin Cooper. I'm the Senior Manager for the Investment Plan and Funding Strategy team. I'm here with you today on behalf of Andrew McCurran, the Director of Strategic Planning and Policy. I'm also here today with a familiar face for all of you, Jonathan Cote, Deputy General Manager of Regional Planning and Housing Development at Metro Vancouver. And he's going to give us a presentation on the findings from Metro Vancouver's Housing and Transportation Cost Burden Study. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this work through your roles on the Metro Vancouver board, but we also thought it was important to bring these findings forward to you in your capacity as the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation to emphasize the importance that good quality, frequent transit plays in household affordability. Jonathan will go through the findings in more detail, but we just wanted to summarize a couple of key findings that we want to bring forward to your attention. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with your own lived experience that vehicle ownership is a significant cost for many households, and many households actually require more than one vehicle, increasing those costs. We find that investing in high quality frequent transit and enabling transit-oriented development can help households reduce their expenditures and dependence on vehicles. Areas with the lowest combined housing and transportation costs are prioritized in Transport 2050 and Metro 2050 for growth, such as the urban centers, frequent transit development areas, and the major transit growth corridors. And lastly, the other key finding is that households with secure rental tenure and good access to transit tend to have the least cost burden. So this is an important finding in the study as well. Just the last point of, while this work shows that most benefits are around the existing rapid transit network, we do anticipate similar benefits accompanying bus rapid transit. So with that, I will hand it over to Jonathan.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me here, and thank you, Caitlin, for the introduction. I have had a few deja vu moments this morning, but it's a pleasure to be here at the Mayor's Council to present the work we've done with the Housing and Transportation Cost Burden Study. I know some folks around this table have seen this work before, so we're going to provide a brief overview. No doubt this work does have a lot of planning applications across the region, both regionally and locally, but I think some of the findings are very relevant to the work that's done at TransLink for planning and advocacy that I think would be really relevant for this group. So appreciate being here. So what is a transportation and cost study? I think everyone in this room is well aware of the challenges the Metro Vancouver region faces with affordability. It's really one of the most difficult, challenging topics that we face in our region. When we often discuss affordability, though, our focus really does focus on housing, and this is for good reason. Housing is the biggest cost that most households across our region face. Having said that, what this study attempts to do is actually combine both housing and transportation costs to really develop a more complex picture of affordability in the region. And the reason transportation is looked at is it is often the second biggest cost, and in some households can be the largest cost that households face. So really legitimately should be part of the affordability discussion. So a little bit of background. This isn't the first time Metro Vancouver Regional Planning has conducted this study. The original study was done back in 2015. I think it's important to note we're not the only region to do this type of work. These types of studies are conducted throughout Canada, across North America, and around the world to really develop a better understanding of affordability. Since 2015, as I think we all recognize, a lot has changed. There has been new investments in transportation infrastructure in our region. Remote work was really not much of an item last time this study was done, and our housing market has definitely gone for a bit of a ride since 2015 as well. All having major factors on this work here. I'm going to jump into some of the findings of this work, but I guess I wanted to provide a few caveats with respect to this study. I think the first and foremost, this really does present some averages over some various different data points, but they really don't represent any particular household. We're taking averages from people who have paid off their mortgages, to those that live in non-market housing, to those who have large mortgages, to those who are in rental housing. The reality is the average number of all of those factors doesn't actually probably represent hardly any residents that we do have. But I think where I would suggest the focus of this work is actually to see the spatial distribution about how those affordability patterns, because that's where the really value of this work is. There's lots of other work that, particularly on the housing side, that really digs into the cost of housing in our region that are far better for looking at those particular components. So with that, I'll jump in. The first map is just looking at housing across the region, and I think there are definitely some locales and geographies that are not going to surprise anyone in this region in terms of where housing costs are more expensive, and those would be the darker colors there. But I think some of the interesting findings that came out of this is that, particularly when it comes to rental housing and housing tenure, is actually an important factor in locations that have some of the most affordable housing, is where we have more rental tenure. A non-surprising factor is that unit size also does play a factor, and I think this would be intuitive to anyone. If you have a much larger residence, it's going to be have a higher cost than those that have a smaller residence. Then we look to layer in some of the transportation costs across the region, and as you can see, there's variations across the region, and there are some patterns with the more peripheral areas tending to have some higher costs. Having said that, you do see pockets of affordability in every aspect of the region, and really the common denominator regarding a lot of that is access to good public transit. There it seems to be the real big driving factor on really what helps drive down transportations across the region. Obviously, good transit access is linked to vehicle ownership and the ability or dependence to be able to have to own a vehicle is very much reliant on transit service in a particular location. Commute distance also does play a factor. So the longer anyone is commuting, obviously that does have an impact and increase the cost of transportation. So when we look across the region, we see quite a wide range of transportations costs throughout the region, and similar to the graphic that we saw before, I think what we see is it's really vehicle and automobile costs that really drive the vast majority of transportation costs in our region. Public transit costs, you can see in black, is really a small component of the average transportation across the region, and really the differences that we do see here is ability for and options related to public transit to drive less or own less vehicles is the direct reason as to why these costs vary throughout the region. So when you combine the two maps together, that's where we really start to see some spatial patterns across the region. And, I think a few kind of things that jump out is there is a perimeter effect, and this is not unique to Metro Vancouver. The farther you get out into to the region, it does have some affordability effect. But I think what is interesting is when you look at the areas that are well served by public transit, and here we're talking about quality public transit at a good frequency. So SkyTrain definitely does show up on the list, but as we have highlighted in this map in the light blue lines, the major transit network, there is a correlation there. The connecting there is when you do have high quality frequent transit, it does lead to pockets of affordability, even as you throughout in all the different parts of our region. And I think the other key finding that's come forward is the combination of rental housing and good public transit really does seem to be the sweet spot when it comes to affordability in the region. So wrapping it all up, I think the key summary from this work is that, number one, transportation costs can often be, as high and can rival housing costs in our region. I think this is relevant because we often, we are always talking about affordability, but it often does get focused on the housing side of things. And I'm not here to suggest that Metro Vancouver does not have housing, affordability challenges. But when you compare our region, and there has been other studies that have looked at this, when you combine transportation costs, we're still not what I would consider an affordable region, but we are not, as we're often labeled, the most unaffordable region there. Another important finding, that I've definitely stressed throughout my presentation here is really a strong connection between affordability in this region and quality public transit and the centers and corridors that we each have in all of the member jurisdictions. There is a level of affordability that does show up through this work here. And as I mentioned before, rental tenure does have a big factor. I'd say one of the less intuitive findings from this work, though, is that population density alone does not deliver affordability. And I think this is, a finding that wasn't necessarily intuitive, particularly from a planning context. But really what this is really suggesting that, housing density that without the combination of good public transit or without looking at rental housing often doesn't deliver affordability in any consistent manner there. So it's just an important planning context for us to be aware of. And then just in conclusion, I think we often think of investing in public transit as a transportation investment in our region, and no doubt it is. It helps people move around the region. But I think one of the applications of this work is really does demonstrate that investing in good, solid public transit really is investing in affordability in the region. And hopefully that will be work with all the work that this group is doing, advocating and pushing to get the proper amount of funding for public transit in our region. So with that, I'll open it up if there's any questions.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Some excellent findings there. Information that is probably not earth-shattering to many of us, but might be to the provincial government. The idea that mindless housing density doesn't translate to affordability will be breaking news over in Victoria. So I hope they're paying attention and we can send this report over there. I think this will be an important input into our plans moving forward. And I had the opportunity to mention that during committee. If we want to tackle affordability like I know we all do, certainly this suggests we have a lot of work to do in terms of improving transportation options in the region where transportation is the primary cost for a family. Like Port Coquitlam, for example, where I was interested to see that people are spending more on transportation than they are on housing. And I appreciate what you said about this may apply to no person in particular, but as an average. And our community is not alone in that. Maple Ridge, Langley Township, and other places as well. So I think that will be an important input for TransLink as they look at future transit expansions. Mayor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciated those last comments. Could you put up this slide that showed Delta being the top?
Is it this one here?
Yeah. It's probably housing and transportation. Well, that's the transportation cost, which does show Delta as the highest.
No, it's one with the colored, where all of Delta was colored. Excuse my eyes. I think it was yellow.
Okay, it could be. Was it transportation or housing or the combination of them?
They're all show Delta as being bad.
You're number one in all, George.
Thank you. But it just proves the point that the cities south of the Fraser still need to have more attention insofar as services from TransLink. And you look at the numbers for Delta. I mean, today, when I came to this meeting, I do take the Expo line. I drive down the South Fraser Perimeter Road and get on the Scott Road station. I'm here, and it works great. But that's a long way for people to go that aren't coming to, say, Metrotown or areas east. But I hope that the planning for the future, near future, takes into consideration the fact that it is starting to affect people that live in these cities and live in our city, where it's very expensive to commute, and on the TransLink services aren't always there for them. So I hope, Mr. Chair, that we can utilize these facts and this information in our planning that is coming up. But I did appreciate your comments before. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Asmussen.
Thank you very much for the report. Interesting information within the report. I would assume that the Metro Vancouver report has been forwarded on to our provincial government. Do we know if being forwarded, if the provincial government has read it or made any comments in regards to the report and its information?
Yeah, so the report has been shared with the provincial government. We haven't had a response back. We have had a lot of interest at the local government level, but we have not yet heard back from the provincial government regarding this report.
Well, I do hope that they take the time to read it. I think it sort of underlines clearly our Access for Everyone plan and the need to double our bus service here. Doubling our bus service would ultimately solve a lot of these issues by putting more transit into areas that are underserved and to increase that level of service, because you need to get people from these areas to the SkyTrains or bus rapid transit to make transit effective. So they want more housing. They've created and destroyed our legislation that we used to build housing. We're building less housing now after that. And if you don't put increased transportation into higher density or higher growth of housing, we're going to have gridlock and nobody's going to get anywhere, because we had our survey on buses and the time lost due to congestion in service. So they run together. So we got a half-baked funding. We cut our deficit from 600 million to 300 million, and we've delayed the decision to fix that in the future. So I do think that's an issue. On the report, the one point I will make out is it's a good report, but it's a generalization. And you take cities, and to say one city, one whole city has it, but like Coquitlam, we're broken down to 4 zones. Vancouver's broken in different zones. Our areas where we have put high density around SkyTrain stations have a lower cost because more people are taking transit. Areas up at Burke Mountain or further in the Ranch Park area or areas have higher costs. So it shows every city has varying degrees of costs associated with transportation, depending on what the development. Higher density will get lower cost, lower density will have higher cost. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further speakers to this item? All right, seeing none, motion to receive. Second, all's in favor, opposed and carried. Next is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any items? Seeing none, consent has been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Next item is a report from the Executive Director.
There we go. Yes, thank you, Chair and members. I wanted to provide you an update on the 2025 federal budget, specifically how that budget has affected transit funding. Before I talk about the changes, I just need to remind you of where we were at the day before Budget Day when it comes to federal public transit funding. The federal government's dedicated transit funding was delivered through is still going to be delivered through the Canada Public Transit Fund, which I would call CPTF version 1.0. This is a program that was actually promised during the 2020 federal election, then actually funded in the 2021 federal budget. This was after advocacy that was at first led by this body in 2019. It was a major part of our advocacy back then to replace the then Investing in Canadian Infrastructure Fund. So this is a program that was funded in 2021. It was actually launched in 2024. It's $30 billion over 10 years, starting in 2026, and it was going to be delivered via 3 so-called streams. A baseline stream, which is very much like the federal gas tax. It's allocation-based. It goes to all transit systems based on your percentage of population and ridership, mostly focused on state of good repair and smaller projects. It's $5 billion over 10 years. The second stream was the Metro Region Agreement stream. It's $25 billion of that $30 billion. It's designed to only be going to the the 22 census metropolitan areas, the larger urban areas in Canada. And it's not like the baseline agreement allocation base. It is going to be using a complex multi-stage application and review process. But on the good news side of that, it was really designed to support plans. In fact, plans not just like ours, but exactly like ours. That program was designed, or that stream was really designed in our planning framework. And then the third stream was the so-called targeted stream. It actually hasn't been launched yet. It's $5 billion. It looks like it was meant for rural transit, active transportation, zero emission buses and the like. The application process for baseline and MRA actually didn't open until mid-2024. So again, 4 years after the program was originally created, and 5 years after was what promised in the election. And before the election, I was actually in December of 2024 and April 2025 respectively, our baseline and MRA funding allocations were announced by the federal government, in total about $2.2 billion. So if you recall, last December, as part of our work to design the first phase of the Access for Everyone plan, we identified $13 billion in capital investments that would form really what we wanted to deliver in that first phase of Access for Everyone, really designed to launch us and to prepare TransLink in the region for delivering the rest of what's in Access for Everyone. So lots of new fleet, the first 3 BRTs, and lots of upgraded and expanded infrastructure, including new bus depots, a SkyTrains operations center, and then the planning work. So this was sort of the first third of Access for Everyone that we wanted to fund. And obviously the Canada Public Transit Fund was going to be the federal contribution towards that plan, which, as per the conversation we were just having, was really designed to support the region's needs and ambitions around supporting housing affordability, population growth, economic diversification, congestion, and all the rest. So just to put the CPTF version 1.0 in context, it's the smallest circle there. It's about 5% of our full 10-year plan, 15% of the first 3 years of Access for Everyone. So obviously, the current, or the CPTF version 1 really was falling well short of our needs. We'll talk about what our plans were around that. But just to put that CPTF version 1 in context, because of the effects of inflation, it's about half of the dedicated federal transit funding that we got from between 2015 and 2024 through the Investing in Canadian Infrastructure plan. So I know in 2021, it looked like the federal government was increasing dedicated transit funding by about 50%. It's going up from about $2 billion a year to $3 billion a year nationwide. But because it took so long really for that announcement to be turned into actual funding to be delivered starting in 2026, the effects of inflation really had an effect. So although the new public transit fund, CPTF, looked like it was a major expansion in federal transit funding, it was actually a massive cut. So we were having problems before the election. So before the budget. So before the budget, we had a pre-budget submission that really responded to these needs. We said, look, as a first step, you need to either accelerate CPTF or double it so that we know that we've got closer to the kinds of federal funding we need to deliver at least the first phase of Access for Everyone. Need to increase the federal cost share. We need to prioritize regions which are ready. We were seeing some real delays federally because we were the only region right now that has an MRA, Metro Region Agreement, allocation announced. One of the asks here was, look, our share of that MRA funding is actually quite a lot less than it really should be when you look at our share of population and ridership. And in fact, if we had the same share of CPTF funding as we had the share of the previous fund, the Investing in Canadian Infrastructure Fund, instead of sitting at around $2 billion in total over 10 years, we'd be closer to $3 billion. Still short of what we need, but a lot closer. So we said, look, like at the very least, let's make sure we reward those regions like ours that have done good planning work and are ready to go. And then, of course, long-term, much more transit funding is needed than the government is providing. So what happened in the federal budget? What I would call CPTF version 2. The good news is our allocation is protected, our $2.2 billion CPTF allocation. Bad news, Although before the budget, we were really, I think, making a good push, and I think there was some good reception from Minister Robertson to reflect, hey, you know what? You're right, 2.2 does look a little bit short of what this region should be getting, based on our proportion of national ridership and population. I think the hope of increasing our $2.2 billion allocation is going to be very unlikely, and that's because the Canada Public Transit Fund is being cut by 20 to 25%. Somewhere between $5 and $7.6 billion from CPTF is going to be redirected to a new fund, general purpose provincial fund. And in fact, there's another dedicated municipal funding, infrastructure funding program for wastewater and water projects designed to support new housing called the Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund, GIF, was also cut. In light of the conversation that we were having in the previous item, it is a little puzzling that the federal government is choosing to cut dedicated municipal infrastructure funding programs specifically designed to support and improve in affordability, but that's what they've done. They've transferred that $7.6 billion into a program that many of you may have heard about. It gets lots of headlines, the $51 billion Building Canada Strong Fund. The headline is it's the biggest new infrastructure fund around. I just wanted to provide some context because there have definitely been some confusing or complicated analysis from FCM and others, which makes it, and from the federal government itself, that makes it sound like this is all new money. It's not. Over half of it is actually from the current gas tax fund, or the newest name is the Canadian Community Benefits Fund, CCBF. That fund isn't being changed. It was originally created in 2004. So it's continuing as is, but they're changing the name again. I think it's called the Communities Stream now. So over half of that $51 billion is a program that's existed for almost or over 20 years. There's another $7.6 billion at least, and maybe more. We're not actually able to, we haven't been able to get confirmation from the federal government yet on exactly how much, but 7.6 at least is coming from the two dedicated municipal infrastructure funds that they've cut. So there's about $15 billion in new funding in this $51 billion fund. So, that is good news. I will say, though, that the components of the Building Canada Strong Fund that municipal infrastructure, including transit, is eligible for, we would need to compete with provincial priorities, including universities, hospitals, highways, tunnels, and so not only would we need to be competing against those other priorities as well as municipal priorities. So there's a smaller pie. Well, there's a pie, but there's going to be a lot more competition for that pie. In order to access that, municipal projects will have to reduce development cost charges for one pocket of that new funding, or if you go for the other pocket, you'll have to deliver the project as a P3. So these are very significant strengths. So what are the implications? At a time where more transit is required to support affordability and the economy and a population, funding, direct federal funding for transit is being cut. There is no, although there are elements, there are those that in the federal government have suggested that's not the case. It is absolutely the case. Dedicated federal transit funding is being cut in this budget. Now, our allocation isn't being cut, but we were working with the minister before the election to try to increase our share of that $30 billion fund. That $30 billion fund is now quite a bit smaller, which makes that increase much less likely. So it doesn't have a direct effect on us, but an indirect effect for sure. And then, of course, it affects the rest of the sector. The new funding in this new $51 billion fund, or at least the elements that are new, aren't going to provide stable, predictable funding. They won't support long-term local or regional planning. They'll be application-based, very politically allocated, at least the way that it looks like they're going to be structured. So next steps, we're looking for more clarity from the Government of Canada on how our existing CPTF allocation is going to be delivered, when we can start accessing it. We actually need this information right away. In fact, the province needs it right away to inform their own capital planning process. They have their own provincial budget in February. And, I think our hope or our ask is that federal and provincial contributions towards that first phase of Access for Everyone, however much that together they can allocate, they actually budget so that we can get going. Our share has already been included in the 2025 investment plan, so we're ready to go. there's an allocation federally, but the province is rightly saying, well, we don't actually know how it's going to be delivered, when it's going to be approved. We need that clarity from the federal government right away. And we've been asking, and they're still working on it. And then finally, we're working with CUDA and the other big transit agencies, Toronto, Montreal, and others. To be frank, we need this cut to be reversed. We need to streamline CPTF. It was really getting bogged down in a lot of process. And then more to the point, we need to actually increase federal transit funding. So we're working with a coalition of partners and CUDA and others to keep pushing on this. It'll be hard work, but the good news is, as I said, at least we have something to start with. Now really the ball's in the province's court to decide how they can match that federal funding in their own 2026 budget. So with that, Mr. Chair, happy to hand this thing back.
Hey, thank you for all the good news, Mike. I must remark what a tremendous failing by the federal government to meeting its obligations and responsibilities to certainly the citizens of our region, but across the country. The one thing they've been quite successful at doing is obscuring the reality and implications of those decisions. And I hope people start to understand it, though that appears to be quite a challenge. I guess once again, we're going to have to be fighting and advocating and engaging with our federal representatives. It sure would be nice if one day we didn't have to spend so much damn time fighting with the feds and the province for them to just meet their basic responsibility to people. But that seems to be, that just seems to be a fairy tale. Anyways, Mayor Buchanan.
Thank you very much, and I would echo those comments about not having to fight all the time for what's basic and already committed. Through you to Mr. Buddha, or actually it could be to you too, Chair. What's our next steps in terms of, like, prior to the budget coming? We actually met with Pacific Caucus. Many of us reached out to our local MPs. And so what are we doing in terms of our collective advocacy at this point? And following up with those bodies.
For sure. No, a good question. I knew that question would come, and we were hoping I was hoping to send information out, some advice, recommendations, and resources out to the Mayor's Council members about that so you could re-engage with your local MPs. I've been waiting for more clarification from the federal government. Every week, we get a little bit more information about what the budget means for federal transit funding, and then the following week, that information is reversed, and in fact, things go in a different direction. So I've kept delaying sending that, but I think we've got as far as we're going to get right now. So I'll certainly send some information out to all members so you can share it with your local MPs, many of whom are, I'll be frank, are under the misapprehension that there's more funding for municipal infrastructure, when in fact there is not. There's definitely not. So I'll provide some resources you can share with your local MPs that demonstrate that, at least according to the budget document itself, there's been a cut to dedicated municipal funding, not just for transit, but for other types of municipal infrastructure. And then we'll certainly follow up as a group with the Liberal Pacific Caucus as well. Again, I've been waiting for more clarification from Ottawa, and it just hasn't been coming. So we'll go with what we've got right now, which we feel fairly confident is accurate.
Okay, and just, if I may, Chair, just follow up in terms of, and again, it could be yourself, Chair, who wants to respond, but in the conversations that we have, what we get, because we're constantly talking to the two groups, and we never have them in the same room together, because they don't choose to do that, we get this: oh, it's their fault. No, it's their fault. And so I'm curious, Chair, perhaps between yourself and the Vice Chair, the conversations you've been having with the province and the feds in that regard, because that's just the game. And then also conversations that, as mayors, we've had it at other tables collectively in terms of speaking to the amount of infrastructure that we are needing as municipalities collectively in this region, and that, individually, obviously, but collectively, what what that amount is, not just in terms of transit, but all that we are going to need. And now if we're having to compete for funding for schools and hospitals and all the rest, which are all the things our residents require and need with this growth. So, you know, I just want to reaffirm, I think it's really important for us to get a sense of not just what, I mean, transit's been pretty good of saying this is what we need over the next 10 years for the first phase of access for everyone. But I do think we also need to collectively pull together, you know, I know Surrey's done a good job in terms of looking at the schools that they're going to need and the amount of, you know, the hospitals. And so if we collectively put that number out, I certainly think it sends a much larger message to our residents, so it's not a fragmented number. It is a solid number, or, you know, as much as we can get from our staff, a solid number in terms of the billions of dollars of infrastructure just for this region. We're not talking about the country, we're just talking about our region. And so the reality of what that means, if we're actually trying to not just deliver more housing, but we know growth is coming, but actually to improve economics, the economy within our region and this country, so that prosperity actually is an outcome that we all want to not just talk about, but actually see for the people who live here today, but we know more are coming. We should have a country that can support its economy and support the people in a very clear way. And I feel like we need to really get a collective number out there and start chipping away at that and inviting them all to the table to meet with us together.
Thank you for your comments. I'll say a few things in response, and then Mr. Buda, please feel free to chime in. First, I think your observation of the provincial and federal government pointing the finger at each other is correct. I mean, just in relation to what Mr. Buda presented to us, certainly my engagement with the provincial minister, province doesn't, pardon me? Yeah. With the provincial minister is the province can't figure out what the federal government is doing, and you know, if we can't even agree on the basics of what's happening, it becomes a real challenge. And this is when I think a situation where when politics is triumphing over like basic common sense, where you know you're reducing funding, but you want to give something a new name and it's all obscured and it's smoke and mirrors and it's political spin, and it's really just all garbage. You know, just at least be honest about the choices that you're making and what you're doing, rather than having to spend all this time fighting over whether, you know, the funding is there or not. Because you can bet your bottom dollar that you go and meet with your local MP, as I'll meet with mine, and he's going to say to me, "Oh no, we're not cutting anything. We've got this new fund with a new name." No matter that it's an old fund with an old name, and you know, it's just that these games are just getting so tiring. Hopefully, eventually, voters get fed up with it and maybe start making different decisions around who they want making these decisions. I know that we'll definitely do our engagement at every level. You know, trying to get them into a room, period, as you know, is challenging, let alone together, but we can certainly try that. And I concur with your comments about coordination of the municipalities, Metro Vancouver, TransLink, to come up with a, you know, at least estimate. And I know some cities are further ahead than others in terms of identifying what is the cost, the true cost of all these infrastructure requirements and upgrades, which, let's be honest, are being driven primarily because of the decision-making out of Ottawa over the last number of years vis-a-vis population growth. And then, of course, with the province with respect to all of the provincial housing legislation. So I like your idea of a number, and hopefully through one of these regional tables, we can coordinate that.
Sorry, can I just respond to one part of that? And sure. I thank you for that. I would say that, yes, a lot of this is being driven by immigration and, quite frankly, flawed policy in terms of how they are, swinging from one side to the next, which does not help, doesn't make Canada look like a great place to want to come, whether you want to just come to be educated, want to come to work here, or you're looking to invest here. It's not seen as very stable, in my opinion. But I would also say it isn't just that is driving the infrastructure. I mean, I think we can be honest that the infrastructure, both provincially and federally, that is their responsibility, has not been invested in for decades in terms of maintenance, operations perhaps, but maintenance and replacement. So we are left with a very large infrastructure deficit, not just for what we need in terms of renew, but the renewal of what we currently have to respond to the growth and the people that are here. I mean, we are, as a country, reliant on immigration in terms of if we had, our country and we had lots of people having lots of babies, it would be a different scenario. But I think, yes, partly driven by immigration, but also the fact that replacement and maintenance and replacement of infrastructure for decades across the country has been at a deficit. And unfortunately, nobody plans for a worst case scenario such as a global pandemic, which really impacts a lot economically and the pressure on certain infrastructure as well.
Thank you. Mayor Johnstone.
Thank you. At the risk of piling on, I want to echo a little bit of what I've heard from the chair and from Mayor Buchanan. But I want to go back. I mean, I remember when I was first on Mayor Council, more than 2 years ago now, we went to Ottawa and we kind of went in there to kind of get a glimpse inside the bubble and to find out what we actually needed to do in order to get transit funded. And first they asked us, well, you guys need to come up with a regional plan that all the mayors can agree on, because we don't want to just have random projects to fund. We want to fund an integrated plan. And we just handed them the regional plan that we already had, the model that we already had, the Access for Everything plan. Then they told us that we needed to link that to our housing plan so we can make sure that our housing is integrated with our transit plan. And we said, well, we showed them how our regional transportation plan is linked to our regional growth plan by legislation. And then they told us, okay, then now you need to wait for dedicated transit funding. And so there we are, we waited. And, even since then, we've even shifted our regional planning, or, frankly, it's been imposed on us somewhat by another level of government, but that's neither here nor there. Our transit investments, but we've done the work to ensure that our transit investments are resulting in increased density as a major housing affordability approach. And we just saw on the earlier report today how we're getting that done. We are building near transit investments. We're making for a more livable region, and we need to continue on that path. But still, here we are. They still have not even kept up with their commitment that they already made to us. They're already made to us years ago. We've moved backwards. I know to some people watching this, it's going to look like we are actually the third Spider-Man in that meme, that we are also the one pointing fingers at senior government. But I want to clarify for folks that we have put our dime down. The mayors have already agreed to this. We've already used our funding levers as far as we can take them. We have put our money in the pot here. And it's the other two levels of government who have not put their money into the pot, even taking away money they've already committed to the pot in order to fund this plan that we agree with. So I'm afraid that it'll sound like we're pointing fingers when we're not. We've already done our work, and they have not done their work. And we need to be clear with that with the provincial and federal government. The province will love to point at SLS, at Surrey Langley SkyTrain, and at Broadway SkyTrain as major investments they're making in transit. And I am appreciative of those investments being made in transit. But those are investments that need to be made 10 years ago. That is building to catch up with the capacity needs that we had 10 years ago. And we need to start as a mayor's council. Well, we have been thinking about what we need 10 years from now. And that's the stuff we have to start funding right now, because we know how long it takes to get this stuff rolled out. 1 million people moving to this region without transit expansion to meet it is going to grind our region to a halt. It's going to grind our economy to a halt. It's going to grind housing affordability to a halt. It is going to affect everybody. And we need, as a group, again, aligned, to be talking to both senior governments about this and get them to figure out how they're going to come to the table and meet us with where we've been. one idea I want to throw out there. I was meeting with the Chamber of Commerce in New Westminster a couple weeks ago. The Minister of Transportation was there. The CAO of Transit was there, and I did try out this idea just to get the Prime Minister more interested in what we're trying to get done here. And the crowd there seemed to like it. I think we should, instead of access for everyone, we should just talk to them and say, hey, public transit, it's like a pipeline, but it's for people. Okay, never mind. You can use that if you want. I just would do anything to get the Prime Minister interested in actually funding what we need in this region. And thank you for this advocacy. I know that we've been working hard on this. Thank you for the reports to back up our advocacy. And let's hold their feet to the fire. Let's not let them get away with cutting what they've already committed to. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor Johnstone. Perhaps if President Trump was demanding an increase in public transit funding like he is defense spending, that would get their attention as well. Mayor Woodward.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that, Mike. Can you confirm, though, what the current conversation may be in regards to the federal government awaiting a provincial commitment?
The MRA funding that the allocation of it was I think a $1.6 billion, $1.5 billion MRA allocation has to be matched by the provincial government before we can sign a funding agreement. The federal government made an announcement over our allocation and said, "Hey, we've got to finalize the actual funding agreement. We need the province to match." To match that, our match has already been confirmed through the investment plan. So it's true that the federal government can say, "Well, we still haven't received formal confirmation from the province of their match." The province will rightly say, "Well, we've already committed to supporting the delivery of access for everyone." My sense is that there's a lack of urgency on both sides, and also a sort of mistiming of the province needs to make a decision related to its budget. They were waiting on the federal budget. So the bottom line to your answer, or your question is, yes, until the province agrees to match the federal CPTF funding through the Metro Region agreements, the federal government isn't going to send us the money. So we need both parties to agree to work ahead, and that's why certainly we've encouraged the province to commit their matching funds as soon as possible. We did that actually a few months ago, and we said, because who knows what will happen in Ottawa? Maybe the fund will be cut or eliminated. The sooner we secure our funding and start spending it, the less likely it'll be, well, what will happen when this happens. So we need the province to take action as well, for sure.
Let's have a follow-up on that. How would the province represent that it's funded the investment plan when it hasn't identified the revenue tool that will do that? They've said in the past they support access for everyone. What they haven't done is contributed their funding share to the capital side. So I mean, if you ask them, hey, are you funding access for everyone? They'll say, oh, well, not yet. We're working towards that. In the agreement we signed with them as part of the investment plan last April, they committed to work with us to identify new funding tools and secure the capital funding we need to deliver the first phase. And they do that for 2027. I think what we would say is we have capital projects ready to go. There's federal funding in Ottawa seemingly ready to go. Let's just get those projects started, because many of them take quite a number of years, fleet purchases, building bus depots, so that when we're ready to fund additional bus service as part of Access for Everyone in 2027 with new revenue sources and the rest, we don't have to then start up all the capital they've already gotten going. So we can start on capital now. We should start on capital now. They take longer, they get more expensive as we go as time passes, while we work on funding the operational aspects of Access for Everyone. Yeah, so it's interesting, Mr. Chair, if I may. It's curious to request capital funding when there's no plan on how to operate it. So I'm not sure. There seems to be lots of wiggle room for lots of people to say, well, this isn't ready and that isn't ready. I'll leave it there. Maybe I can talk a bit more offline about that, or in a closed meeting. But
I think it sounds a little more complex than the federal government is just the issue, but is it more complex than that?
It absolutely is. I mean, to be clear, the Constitution is very clear. Transportation is the responsibility of the provincial governments. Federal funding for transit is not their constitutional responsibility. Now, they derive benefits from good transit to areas that they have responsibility for, so that's why they should be investing. But this really comes down to the comments that Chair West made at the beginning of the meeting. The provincial government really is the key decider here when it comes to our operating deficit and then on their contributions towards capital expansion. And those things have to go hand in hand.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further speakers, motion to receive. Second, all those in favor. Oh, pardon me, Mayor Hurley.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to a different topic, just a question for staff, if that's okay.
Sure, go, why don't you, I'll have the vote on the motion and then we'll do it under other business. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Mayor Hurley. Go ahead, Mayor Hurley.
Okay, so I'm not sure that the correct staff are in the room to answer this, but I think it's a point that I need to bring up on behalf of especially Burnaby residents. The BC RTC's President report to TransLink included how they have reduced SkyTrain noise in the first quarter of 2025 from 85 decibel to 83 in quarter two, a 2.4% improvement. What the report didn't highlight is that the BC RTC SkyTrain noise target is actually 75 decibels. So they missed their target by 10.6. So I think this is something that really needs to get addressed because, you know, especially along the SkyTrain tracks and the bands in Metrotown, it's really causing a drop in standard of life for many people that are living along there. So not sure if there are the proper staff are here to answer that, but it's certainly something I would like to see addressed.
And I'll see if Kevin can come up. I'll just note, of course, that that's an operational issue that's outside of the mandate of the Mayor's Council.
Yeah,
However, I did receive a communication from one of your residents on this
Yeah,
and asked TransLink staff to follow up directly with them, but I'll let Kevin speak to the issue.
Yeah, but there's still a place here for us to ask questions on operations.
Absolutely, yeah.
I realize we don't direct operations.
Sure.
But it is public concern.
Sure. Mayor Hurley, thanks for the question. We do respond regularly to complaints on rail noise along the SkyTrain tracks. We have a pretty comprehensive rail grinding program that allows us to go out there and essentially smooth out the rails to reduce that noise, and then we do testing that gives us that decibel reduction. Happy to bring back more information around that program and the work that we're doing to get that down.
So we are intent on meeting our target of 75? Is that correct?
That is our goal. That is our target. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next meeting of the Mayor's Council will be on January 26, 2026. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn to closed? Move second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess and then we will reconvene for our closed meeting. Thank you very much.